Thank you for joining us for this presentation. This is Financially Fit. It is part of our Financial Wellness Week here at UF. My name is Kimberly. I do work for the Office for Student Financial Aid and Scholarship. So I'm excited that you've joined us today, and I hope that you find this presentation very helpful in beginning your financial fitness. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. When this original poll was conducted, it was conducted by Inceptia, and these were the results that they found. So 74% of students rated their financial knowledge as a B or a C, so not terrible. 60% of students did not create a budget for themselves, which likely led to the fact that 62% of students found it difficult to pay their monthly bills, as well as 62% did not have an emergency fund, and 67% had not checked their credit score. So generally speaking, from these results, we can see where students struggle the most, and that's obviously with keeping up with those monthly bills, setting aside that emergency fund, and sticking with that budget. So what we're talking about when we talk about financial wellness or being financially fit, we're talking about having a healthy financial life. So some components of what that might look like would be, being able to pay your bills on time, having a steady source of income, being able to afford all the things you need, plus maybe some of the things that you want. You need to have a good understanding of your personal finances, where you are now and where you want to go and how you're going to get there. You need to have a manageable level of debt and be prepared for the future. So these are some things we're going to touch on today, but we're going to talk about it in 3 different categories. So we're going to start off with talking about being well informed about financial options. We're also going to talk about developing healthy habits, and we're going to pay attention to some very important financial safety rules. So when we're talking about being well informed, we're talking about your financial options, the bank that you choose, whether or not you choose to have a credit card, your overall credit report, and your credit rating. So those are things you need to invest some time in researching and staying on top of. Developing healthy habits, we're going to talk about setting goals for ourselves, understanding our current spending habits, and how we can incorporate those into setting up a budget. And then financial safety, these are going to be those moments when you might need a little extra help, or you might need to find a new source of income, as well as, protecting your finances that you have in place and preparing for your future. So that's sort of our overall agenda for the day. So we're going to jump in to our well-informed section. So we're going to talk about banking. I know many of you probably already have a bank account, but it never hurts to reevaluate if that's the right bank for you. Or at some point in the future, you may decide that you do want to switch banks or maybe add a different account. So maybe now you have a checking account, but maybe you want to open a savings as well. So when you're choosing a bank or a financial institution to handle your finances, be aware that bank services as well as customer needs will vary, so you'll need to do some research to find the right institution for you. So to do that, you want to determine your needs, like how are you going to use this account? How are you going to move money in and out of this account? What are your sources of income? How do you manage your spending? What products or services do you need? So for example, if you plan to withdraw cash frequently, then you need to find a bank that has conveniently located ATMs for you. If you have overdraft concerns, you may need to open an account that has some sort of overdraft protection option. And then, of course, you can always check into the perks and rewards. Now, as a student, a lot of times you can get a free student checking account where they don't charge you like a monthly maintenance fee for the bank. The downside to those is sometimes they limit how much funding you can withdraw each day, things like that. So you need to make sure you're researching those perks and rewards very thoroughly to make sure that the account is still going to meet your needs while you're also enjoying these rewards. The Roundup savings programs, if you aren't familiar with those, are really great ways to, move some money into savings constantly. So you're always sort of putting a few pennies over to the side for your savings. And the overdraft fees, one thing to keep in mind if you have a savings account and a checking account, Some institutions offer an option where once your banking account falls below a certain threshold, it will move money from your savings to prevent you from going into overdraft. So those are all sort of different options that you need to determine if you need them, and then find an institution that's going to meet those needs that you have. So a quick checklist when you're thinking about opening an account or moving to a different banking institution. So is the bank FDIC insured? What are the fees? So always check their fee schedule. You need to know what it's going to cost you if you go into overdraft or different things like that. Is there a monthly maintenance fee? So view that fee schedule that they have before you open the account. You need to know what happens if you overdraw the account. Also, make sure you choose a bank that has conveniently located branches, either close to where you're living or close to campus or wherever it is that you're going to be. And again, easy access to ATMs. So if you open an account at one bank, but you have to use the ATM down the street from your house, which belongs to another bank, you're going to incur extra fees for doing that. So you want to try to use ATMs that belong to your bank. And also other considerations such as, can your family send you money to your account? You know, that might be something that's important for you. So make sure you're checking on those types of items. Okay, credit. So when we're talking about credit, I feel like this is probably the one area that as college students you may feel the least knowledgeable about. So we're going to kind of go pretty basic with this just to make sure everyone kind of has a general understanding of credit. So you've probably heard people talk about maybe having good credit or having bad credit. Typically what they're talking about in that sense is a credit score. And your credit score is an index number that lets creditors or lenders know how likely you are to repay your debt. So if you go to the bank and ask for a loan, they want to know what their chances are of getting the money back that they loan you, correct? So they use your credit score to determine how trustworthy you are in repaying your debt. That credit score is generated from your credit report. So the actual credit report is a detailed story of your entire credit history, as well as your current credit situation. So it's going to show everyone that you currently owe money to, whether it's a student loan, a car note, a credit card. It's going to have all that information on there. It's going to tell how long that account's been open. It's going to show the maximum balance, the current balance, all of your payments, if they've been made on time or if they've been late. So all that information is compiled in your credit report. It's very important that you know what's in your credit report and that you make sure it's accurate. So to do that, you need to know where to find them. So there are three major credit reporting companies. They are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, everyone is entitled to one free credit report from each of these institutions per year. The most reputable place to do that is at annualcreditreport.com. We're going to post that in the chat for you, so you'll have that website. So remember, you can go here to get a free credit report from each of the three agencies once a year. You can get all three of them at once if you wish, or you can get your Equifax in January, get your Experian in June, your TransUnion sometimes later. Just however you want to do it, but you get one free from each of the three companies each year. You need to check that annually. You need to make sure the information on there is accurate. If anything is incorrect, you need to notify the reporting companies so they can help you get that fixed. One common misconception is that checking your credit report is going to affect your credit score or affect your report. It doesn't impact your credit report for you to check your own credit. It is impacted when lenders check your credit. So if you apply for a loan and they approve you, it's going to show on there. If you apply for a loan and they deny you, it's going to show on your credit report that you asked for that. If you apply for credit and they approve you, but you decide you don't want the loan, it's still going to be reported on there. So every time you ask to borrow money or you ask for an account with a lender or a creditor, it's going to be on this report. So you need to make sure this is correct. So what happens if there's bad news on your credit report? Well, it can impact your housing. So obviously, if you're trying to get a mortgage, But for college students who probably aren't getting mortgages, it can affect your leasing. So when you're trying to get a lease at an apartment complex, that can be impacted by the information in your credit report. Also, if you're trying to purchase a car or your interest rate. So two people can buy the exact same car for the exact same cost, but one can pay twice as much as the other per month because of the interest rate, which is determined by the information in the credit report. It can also impact your job eligibility. There are some employers who will not or cannot hire you if you do not have good credit history. So this is something you need to start working on now. Don't think that it's something you're going to fix later or deal with later. You need to start building your credit now and continue to maintain that good credit going forward. So factors that impact your credit. You can see there are 6 factors listed here. The first 2 are the big factors. They're going to impact it the most. So you've got payment history. So you need to pay your bills on time every month, and your total outstanding debt. So if you have 7 credit cards with a $1,000 credit line each, you have, $7,000 in total outstanding debt. So those are the 2 big ones. And then also length of credit history. So how long have your accounts been open? So the longer your account is open with that positive payment history, that just builds your credit even more. The amount of credit, meaning, you have a $1,500 credit card and it has $1,498 charged on it, that doesn't quite look so good. So that's important as well. Your credit mix, this is something that's going to be a little hard to do when you're first starting out with building your credit, but you need to think about this now in long term. So credit mix, you don't want to just have 5 or 6 credit cards on your credit report. So that doesn't look good. But if you have a credit card and a student loan and a car, those are different types of creditors. So they get to see an idea of how you're paying on those different types of debts. And then your credit applications history. So as I mentioned previously, anytime you apply for credit, it's going to show on there. You don't want to have a lot of credit applications on your report. That doesn't look really good. All right, so how can you establish credit if you're just trying to get started on this? You can do so pretty easily by having your own credit card, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. You can also become an authorized user on someone else's credit card. So if you have a parent who has an established credit history and they're willing to allow you to be an authorized user on one of their cards, that could be one way that you could start establishing some history. Also, there are some financial institutions, banking institutions, where you can do a secured credit card, where you maybe pay $500 to the banking institution and they extend you a $500 line of credit. That makes the bank feel a little better because they've already got the $500, so they don't have to worry about being out any money. And then it helps you as well to establish that credit history. You need to practice good credit habits now so that you can be in a position to not have to fix bad credit later, and you can just be on a steady trajectory for positive credit going forward. And then, of course, if you have student loans, paying your student loans responsibly and on time is an excellent way of establishing credit for yourself. Credit cards. So do your research on credit cards. Student credit card offers, sometimes they look really good, but they oftentimes have really high interest rates. And sometimes the card practices can be predatory. So make sure you're getting your credit card from a reputable credit card company. Be careful with your credit limit. If you are an impulse purchaser or you don't feel like you're going to be very responsible with your credit card, the number one thing you can do is make sure your credit limit is low enough that you can certainly manage it. You also need to research the fees. There are late payment fees, there are over the limit fees, there are various fees. Sometimes there's an annual, credit card fee that they charge you, so you need to know what those are. And there are usage perks sometimes for using credit cards. A couple of really important things: you never want to exceed 25% of your credit limit, especially if you're trying to get that good credit history going. And again, if you don't think you're going to be very responsible with your credit card, either don't get one, or if you do get one, maybe send it to your parents' house so they can just store it away for you somewhere so you're not actually using it all the time. because you're just going to get in a lot of trouble if you just charge these up and then don't pay them. Okay, but again, these can be a great way for you to start building credit, and a great way for you to start building healthy habits and using your credit properly. Money transfer apps, these have become insanely popular recently. So this is going to be your Venmo and your PayPal and your Cash App and things like that. Do your research on these. The length of the transactions can vary to, it can be instant or it could take a few days depending on the size of the transaction. Some of them do charge fees for transferring money. Check the safety features on whatever app you're using and make sure you're using the highest safety options that they have available to protect your financial information. Some of them require you to have a specific type of account, like you may need a checking account specifically in order to use the app. A lot of financial institutions will have built-in money transfer apps. So Zelle is really popular with a lot of banking institutions. So you might want to look into that option as well. All right, so that was our Be Informed section. So make sure you're doing your research on all of those things. Next, we're going to talk about healthy habits. So these are ways that you can start building good habits for your finances right now. The number one thing you can do is learn to set good financial goals. So we recommend using the SMART tactic, which starts with being specific. So don't just say, oh, I want to save $500. Say, oh, I want to save $500 within the next 6 months, and that money is going to be set aside for emergency expenses, whatever it may be. So make sure you're being very specific. Also, make sure it's measurable. I want to save $1,200 this year. So in order to do that, I'm going to put $100 in my savings account every month. So you need a measurable way to make sure that you're staying on track with your goal. Your goals must be achievable and realistic. If they're not, then you're obviously not going to be able to stick to them, and your motivation for working towards them could dwindle. And time-oriented, so give yourself a deadline. Doesn't mean that if something goes wrong and you don't meet that deadline that you failed that goal, but you need to have a deadline in mind so that you can track your progress towards meeting that goal. You can set short-term goals versus long-term goals. So short-term, we're talking weekly habits, monthly, maybe semester. Maybe you want to plan a trip home for the summer or something like that. Long-term goals are going to be a year or longer. Maybe you want to plan a graduation trip or buy a car next year or something like that. So that's going to go back to setting your goal and then setting a path, a time-oriented and measurable path for getting there. One really great tip is break your goals down into steps. So it's going to make them feel smaller. And as you, get through each step, you're going to feel like you're progressing towards a bigger goal. You're going to feel accomplished. It's going to give you that extra motivation to keep going. And always rank your goals by priority, so you know which ones you really want to focus on the most. That way, if you find that you can't really stay on the initial path that you set for yourself, you can focus on that priority and say, well, how can I change my time orients or my measures, to stay focused on this particular goal. All right, so start now with practicing setting your financial goals, because this is going to really help you out long term. You also must understand your personal spending habits. So we talk about financial tracking. We're talking about the day-to-day minutia of how you're spending your money. So doing this, if you track this every day, or maybe you sit down a couple times a week and look at your bank account and see where you've spent all your money, it's going to sharpen your financial awareness. So it's going to make you more aware of, oh, I swiped my debit card for $3 at the vending machine. Didn't seem like a lot at the time, but I did that 10 times this week. So it's going to make you more aware of every time you go to spend money. It's also going to uncover potential spending issues. So, you'll be able to see that maybe you went to Starbucks too many times this week. And it also prevents budget overflow. So it's going to help you focus on sticking to your budget. And it motivates cutback behavior. So it helps you find areas where you can cut back on that spending so that you can use those funds more appropriately. So this is the minutia. This is the little things, the day-to-day, how you're spending your money. Okay. So what you want to do is also take an honest self-evaluation of your spending habits. We talk about that cash flow again. That's your daily habits, where you're spending your money. You need to think about where you might could cut back or where you need to maybe redirect some of your funds. So that's your cash flow. You need to think about that also in conjunction with your monthly expenses. So this is how I'm spending my money day to day, but I've also got to be able to cover these monthly costs as well. And you need to know your monthly income. So you need to know how much money is coming in to cover those monthly expenses as well as maintain your cash flow. You need to know your complete debt details. How much do you owe? Who do you owe it to? How long is it going to take you to pay it off? So that's another area where you're going to be able to set specific goals for yourself. Again, knowing and understanding your credit score and making sure everything in your credit history is accurate, and setting those financial goals for yourself so that you can stay on track with your budget, so you can pay off any debts that you need to get rid of, stuff like that. So understand how you spend your money. Very important. Now, in understanding how you spend your money, there are several different types of spenders. So first we have our emotional spender. These are the people who buy something because they're happy, or they buy something because they're sad, or they buy something because they're angry. So your emotional spenders are going to tend to spend more money than they should. They're going to impulse buy, and they're likely to go into debt on their credit cards, or at least overcharge their credit card so that they can't pay it off that month. If you are an emotional spender, there are some tools you can implement for yourself. So you can do the wait for it rule, where you make yourself wait at least a week and see if you still want that item. The indecision rule. So if you have 2 or 3 items and you're not sure which one you want, don't buy any of them. Because if you really wanted one more than the others, you wouldn't be indecisive about it. Next, we have our status spender. So these are the ones that buy those big ticket items, right? So they're going to wait and get, their financial aid refund, and they're going to go buy those new Jordans, or they're going to buy that new bag, or whatever it is that they've been waiting on for so long that it's just so expensive. The problem with the status spender is those funds that you just got a lump sum of probably need to be allocated somewhere else. So if you like big ticket items, there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to set up a goal and a financial plan so you can save up to purchase those items, okay? Next, we have the dodger. So these are the ones that don't pay any attention to what their bills are or how much they are or when they're due. They're just flying through life by the seat of their pants and drinking a lot of Starbucks coffee and not worrying about, whether or not the power's on at home. That's a pretty extreme example. But if you are a dodger, you need to set up automatic payments on your bills. That way your bills are getting paid every month. That also forces you to play an active role in your finances, because if your power bill is, $200 and it comes out on the 14th, you've got to maintain your account so that that money is there on the 14th. So that's going to force you to start playing a more active role in your finances. And then we have the mega saver. They're thinking long term. They put every extra penny they have into their savings account. They don't splurge on anything, right? That sounds like somebody who's really responsible with their money. And in a sense they are, but the one thing they're probably missing out on is building their credit. So keep that in mind as well. So if you're a mega saver and you don't want to take out any debts because you don't want to owe anybody any money, consider maybe that prepaid credit card or that secured credit card I was talking about. One good option for our mega savers is on your credit card. You can charge one thing on it per month. So maybe if you have, for example, a Netflix account, have that charged to your credit card, and then you can go in every month and pay that off. Okay, so that's a great way for you to start building that credit if you are the mega saver. All right, so again, you need to know your habits and how you spend your money so you can figure out which category you fall into here to determine how you need to focus on your financial priorities. Budgeting, I'm not going to go into a lot of budgeting today because we do have our Bougie on a Budget presentation coming up on Thursday. So you're going to have a lot of budgeting tips in that presentation. I strongly encourage everyone to register for that as well. Sort of the big tips for budgeting: create a budget that you can stick to, that must be realistic. Start with your goals, total your monthly expenses, know your income, create that realistic budget, and revisit those goals and expenses periodically to make sure you're on track or to see if you need to make any adjustments anywhere. All right, spending priorities. So how should I spend my money? What should I spend it on first? Well, first it should be your high priority bills. These are the things you must have or you must pay in order to live and go to school. So that's going to be your rent, your food, utilities, stuff like that. Then you're going to have your low priority bills. So these are still important, but maybe a little less essential than your high priority bills. So cell phone, internet, stuff like that. I know it's difficult to think of how you would survive without internet at home. But if that is something that just doesn't fit in your budget, you can find alternatives for that. Savings. So it's recommended that you put at least 10% of your remaining funds after all your bills are paid into a savings account. I know that that is probably difficult when you are a college student, just trying to get your bills paid every month. But if you can't do 10%, do however much you can. If that's $5 this month and $20 next month, that's fine, as long as you're starting to build that habit and being conscious about the fact that you need to set money aside for savings. We also have the emergency savings plan. So this is for those unexpected expenses where you maybe get a flat tire or your laptop crashes and you really need to make a large purchase immediately. Again, I know that it's difficult to create an emergency savings account, but that is something that you need to at least think about and set a goal for yourself for how you can get there. And then our smallest priority should be our fun money. Sadly, I know. But these are the funds that you're going to use at your discretion after all of your required expenses are paid. Okay, so keep that in mind. Don't go out and have a good time and then use the leftover money to pay your bills. It needs to be vice versa. Okay? All right, so a little more about spending priorities and just a quick recap of some of the things we've already talked about. If you're looking for a financial institution, make sure you find one that works for you and your needs. It needs to have convenient ATMs for you. Your credit is important, so use it responsibly. When you're shopping, try to buy generic. It may not seem like you're saving a lot on individual items, but overall it can lead to some really big savings if you're doing generic instead of store brands. Stick to the sale items or in-season items. So if you're buying something that's out of season at the grocery store, it's going to cost you more. So wait till it's an in-season item. Always plan your grocery trips. So don't go when you're hungry or don't go without any plan in mind. You want to have a grocery list with your, planned out meals so that you don't overspend. For some of your other sort of bigger options, you can try to find affordable housing options. So I know that that's difficult. And I know that we all want to live in that really nice apartment, but sometimes it's better for our budget to find something a little more affordable. You can also use public transportation instead of having to buy a vehicle. Don't buy new. So thinking about like your books for your courses, if you can get used books or maybe electronic books, or if you can, resell them when you're done with them, that's always a great option as well. And as far as maybe figuring out a way to bring in more income for yourself, you could always get or try to get a flexible job so that you can still focus on your studies. You want to graduate on time. So being a college student is a great experience and it's a lot of fun, but you don't want to be stuck in these college financial situations forever. So make sure you're graduating on time so that you're moving on to the next stage, which is your career stage. And network for the future. You can start doing that now. Start figuring out, your career path for going forward. And just to revisit your social life, I know I mentioned earlier that this should be your lowest priority. However, we do know that this is important for your overall health as well, for your mental health. So outside of your financial health, you have other health issues to concern yourself with, and social life is really important. But keep in mind that there are options for you. There are a lot of companies and organizations in the area that offer Gator perks. So you can get discounts for being a UF student. There are also options for free or low cost events. So you can find lots of information about those. There are a lot that are on campus, around campus, near campus. So you just need to do a little bit of research for that. And then, of course, outdoor activities are a really great option right now, especially with the pandemic. So, you might want to spend the afternoon at Lake Alice or, visit a local, uh, water area, something like that. So try to think of creative and fun things that you can do that are low cost so that you're taking care of yourself, your social life, your mental health, as well as your financial health. Okay. So now we're going to move into our last topic, which is financial safety. So we're going to talk about ways that you can feel secure in your financial situation, as well as actually protecting your financial data. So finding funding. So this is the big one, right? You need money coming in if you have money going out. So you want to look into financial aid options. You can always contact our office to see if that's an option for you. You can look into student employment options. There are many on campus as well as off campus that can help bring in some extra funding for you. And you need to continue looking for scholarships. So on our website, we do have the scholarship search engine, and that is updated very frequently. So you want to check on that often to see if there's any funding opportunities out there for you. Extra help. If you find yourself in a really difficult situation, please reach out and let someone know that you're struggling. There are, almost always there are options for us to find some help for you. So, first of all, you could contact our office again, see if there's anything available for you from a financial aid perspective. The U.S. Field and Fork Pantry is a free service for students. You can go in and get, I think it's a week's worth of food items at a time. I do recommend you check their website or contact them before you go because I think their hours are a little bit different right now. But that's an excellent resource for UF students as well as staff as well. The Career Connection Center is an extremely helpful opportunity for all of our students. So they can assist you with resumes, interviews. They even have a clothes closet if you need, an outfit to wear to an interview, something like that. So definitely check in with them to see what options they have to help you out. And then, of course, our counseling and wellness center. So if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or not really sure how you're coping with things, please check in with them and see what resources they can offer you as well. All right, financial protection. So this is increasingly more important every day, it feels like. So make sure you secure your hardware. Make sure your security software is up to date, things like that. Beware of public settings. So if you're on an unsecured Wi-Fi network, wouldn't recommend logging into your financial accounts there. Change your passwords. They recommend that you change your password every 90 days for your financial account. And don't use the same password for your financial accounts that you use for your Netflix accounts, okay? You need to use separate passwords. Secure your apps. So all of your financial apps on your phone, you need to make sure that you have your security settings in place for those. And encrypt your data. So if you're logging into a website, before you type in your password, make sure it's got that little lock up in the search bar so it lets you know that it's encrypting the data. Limit your social sharing. So this is interesting. So be careful about sharing too much information on social media because sometimes you are inadvertently sharing the answers to your challenge questions and then people can gather information about you to log into your financial account. So be careful about that. Protect your papers, especially things that have your name, date of birth, your financial information on them, especially your social security number. Those things need to be shredded before you throw them away. You can usually find a fairly inexpensive personal shredder like on Amazon or somewhere like that. You can also utilize services at places like Office Depot. They'll do shredding for you, and I think they charge you by the pound. So take in a little bit at a time. But you want to make sure that you are shredding those documents, not just throwing them away. Again, check your credit, secure your credit. You need to be doing that annually. If there's anything incorrect, you need to report it immediately and try to get it corrected. Read your billing statements. So if you need to compare your statements to see if, why is my power bill a lot more this month than last month? Or on my credit card, wow, I didn't realize I had charged this much on my card this month. Let me look at these charges. So you need to make sure all that information is correct. So keep on top of those things as well. Okay, preparing for your future. So what's really important when you declare a major, you need to make sure you've done your research. So what are the job opportunities for someone with your major? What is your possible salary in the future? Do you need to relocate in order to be successful in that career? So those are things that you need to be considering now, while you're choosing your major or while you're still in school. You can also take steps now to be competitive and connected, so that way when you start applying for jobs, you've already kind of got a leg up a little bit. You can look for internships, volunteer work, check in with the Career Connection Center. Again, that's a great resource for you. Go to the career fairs, so there will be some of those on UF campus as well as just outside of campus, so you can always check those out. And start networking as much as you can. So again, once you graduate and you start applying, it's going to be a big advantage if you have at least somewhat of a network built for yourself. So you have people to check in with or maybe get advice from. So that's really important. And of course, managing your student loans. So you can do this, of course, right now. Start doing this as a student. You need to only borrow what you need to cover your expenses. Know how much you're borrowing each year, okay? So keep track of that. Make sure your contact information stays updated with your loan servicer so they know how to get in touch with you. You need to understand how interest accrues on your loans, and you need to know that there are multiple repayment plan options out there for you. So once you enter repayment, you have different payment plan options. So you need to pick the one that works best for your budget. Sometimes there are student loan forgiveness programs depending on the career that you choose, so keep that in mind as well. If you automate your loan payments, so you set it up on auto pay, it's going to save you a small percentage on your interest rate. So that's a good option as well. And again, you need to start practicing those healthy financial habits. If you start that now, it's going to be much easier as you move forward, okay? So build those habits now so that it's just innate to you as you have more income, you have more money to work with, but you already have those healthy plans in place to make sure you're using your money wisely. All right, so a quick recap of all of our sections. We had a lot of information today. So remember, make sure you're doing your research on your banks and your credit cards and all of that stuff. Make sure you understand credit and your credit score and how that impacts you. For your healthy habits, start setting those financial goals. Start tracking your spending so you know how you spend your money and work on those budgets. Again, one more plug for our Thursday presentation, Bougie on a Budget. We're going to talk more about those budgeting tips. Financial safety. Remember, you should always feel comfortable reaching out for help if you have questions or you have concerns or you're just feeling overwhelmed. So there are options for people to offer you some assistance and some guidance. And then protecting your finances. So make sure you're taking those very important steps to protect your financial information, especially online. I do want to put up this resources page. So these are some places where you can do more research on, either budgeting or just general finance information. There's also links to our financial wellness website for student financial aid and scholarships, as well as cooking on a budget. We've got some videos there for you that was put together by the Field and Fork Pantry, so that's pretty exciting. Make sure you check those out. On our website and on our social media accounts, you can see some financial wellness tools and information, videos, and some great tips there. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. Y'all have a great day.